It is time for our Inside the Sixers segment right now. And he joins us each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The one and only Paul Hudrick joins the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, we've been talking about the Eagles, but there's trade speculation rumors going with the 76ers. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you, man?
We're doing pretty good. So let's start with the most ridiculous thing, and we'll let you answer this question. Blake Griffin. I feel like that's become a question now, all of a sudden, if the Sixers would actually trade for Blake Griffin.
Well, there is no scenario in which they would trade for Blake Griffin. That is an impossibility just because of that salary and what you'd be paying. For people who might have thought Tobias Harris's contract is bad, that contract might be the worst contract in the entire NBA right now. Him and Russell Westbrook will be pretty close, but I would give the nod to Blake Griffin. It is the worst contract in basketball. I would be shocked if anybody trades for that contract. I think they are looking to a really ugly buyout situation just because it's just so much money. And I don't know what Detroit's going to have to do to get out of it, but they're going to have to figure it out. Now, if he gets bought out, would I maybe have interest? Maybe as a backup 4 and possibly a backup stretch 5. Possibly, but I don't know if that's what he wants. I don't know what opportunities would be out there for him if he's bought out. I don't necessarily, like I said, a trade is impossible. A buyout, it's possible, but I don't necessarily see it. But I wouldn't totally be against it if that scenario occurred.
So with that being said, let's touch on the two names that are actually more realistic. DeLon Wright, George Hill. What's the latest on those fronts?
So, for me, George Hill was a guy, as soon as he got traded to the Thunder, I thought he made a ton of sense for the Sixers. A veteran guy, can, hit outside shots. He's a true point guard. A couple of years ago with the Bucks, I thought he outplayed Eric Bledsoe in the playoffs. So, this is a guy that has plenty of experience. He's played for a lot of good teams. He's played for a lot of good coaches. As a backup point guard, I think he would be an outstanding fit. I think he would elevate this team in a big way. Obviously, Daryl Morey and Sam Presti, who is Oklahoma City's GM, they have a good relationship already. They worked out the Al Horford trade this offseason. I don't see any reason why you couldn't make it work. It would take, I think, with Hill's salary, basically Mike Scott and like Tony Bradley would probably get it done financially. You'd probably have to throw in a second, but I think that's a move that would make a ton of sense. DeLon Wright, I think, also would make a lot of sense. Not as good of a shooter as George Hill, not as much experience as George Hill, but is crafty off the dribble. Again, a true point guard. If you pair him with Shake Milton, I think you might have something there. I think that could work. He doesn't turn the ball over. Doc Rivers has complained now 2 games in a row about the bench unit not moving the basketball, the ball sticking. I think you add Hill or Wright, and either of those guys would elevate the bench immediately.
You were always big on Shake, but did the last 2 games show you his importance even more? I'm having a problem, though, with obviously his loss is going to change the way that this bench plays and the rotation and how guys have to play more minutes and all, but I feel it's such an extreme drop. And I think Shake Milton's a good player, but it seems too extreme that you fall off this bad just because of Shake Milton. So I'm personally having a hard time trying to juggle that.
Yeah, bros, for me, I've been saying all along, I still thought their bench, and as you said, I love Shake. I still think Shake's a huge part of this team. And like you said, when he doesn't play, you see the huge drop off the bench, what it takes. And to be honest with you, I wasn't thrilled with the bench with Shake Milton being a part of it. I still think there are a couple significant upgrades to be made. One, like I just said, a true point guard, ball handler type player that can run the offense, get you into your sets, and just really calm things down. And then a stretch big, a backup 4/stretch big, I think is what you're looking for. Like a guy like Bielitsa from the Kings, or even, if Daryl Morey can make nice with the Rockets, a PJ Tucker, like a guy that can play the backup 4, but then could also small ball match up in a 5 situation and play the 5. That's the kind of guy I think they need. So I still think the Sixers starting unit is really good. I think they can compete with anybody. And I think you saw that in the Phoenix game where they kept up in that game. They actually outplayed the Sun starters really for the first half. And then the bench unit just really, they were behind the 8 ball all game, and the Sixers couldn't overcome it. The way Monty Williams kind of staggered his lineup too, where, Devin Booker was playing against, some of the Sixers bench unit. You saw how disastrous that was, and then Doc adjusted and kind of staggered his bench. So, yeah, I think, first of all, yes, you see the value of Shake Milton, how good I think he is, and I think he is that good, but also that there were issues, even when he's in the lineup, I don't think this bench is good enough.
Paul Hudrick joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, check out his podcast coming in for a landing at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Check out all of his work at 973ESPN.com. With all that being said, what should be the priority when it comes to improving the bench? Should it be a guard? Should it be a stretch four? Or should it be something else, Paul?
For me, number one would be a guard. I want a guy who can create offense for himself, create offense for others. I think that, to me, would be the number one priority. So if you can get a George Hill in here, you can get a DeLon Wright in here, one of those, a type of player like that, who is just can run the show, can get you into your offense, but can also, hit the occasional outside shot, can score for himself, can pass the ball and create for others. I think that, to me, would just make them better. I think it would take pressure off Shake Milton. I think it would help him. He'd play more off the ball. So I think that could help him a lot in a lot of ways to take, and Doc Rivers said it too. He said all the guys he has on the second unit, other than Matisse and Dwight Howard, who were in there for defense and for rebounding, they're all scorers. Korkmaz, Milton, and even Maxey, Mike Scott is a shooter. Like, they all want to score the basketball. They're not great passers. So I think they need that. I think they need a passer who can just run the show. So I think that is my top priority. And yeah, then number two for me would be still an upgrade of the backup four and a stretch big that can really, help open things up. So to me, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's both. I think they need to make a move for both. We'll see what happens. But if you're only going to do one, I think the point guard / shot creator is the guy that I would prioritize.
How much of this is just a standard West Coast swing where, look, you play 72 games? If you're a championship caliber team, you win in a normal 82-game season, you win mid-50s or so, that's still a lot of losses. So it's obvious that they need help. Everyone is acknowledging that. But how much of this, right now they're 1-2 playing Utah tonight, is this just naturally you're going away from home, you're hitting the West Coast, you're playing some tougher teams, all right, you fall? How much of it is that more so? I just feel the reaction when they win, this team can win a championship. When they lose, oh, they got to move Danny Green to the bench. This guy stinks. How are they going to do it? It's like, let's calm down and just acknowledge that, look, they're going on the road. They're playing some tough opponents. I'm not happy they're losing, but, I don't know. How much of it would fall into that category for you?
Yeah, I mean, bros, that's a lot of it, is that they're just playing some really good basketball teams with some really good players. They go, the worst team they're playing on the trip is Sacramento, and Sacramento won, I think, 7 of 8 or 8 of 9 coming into that game. And that was a tough win against De'Aaron Fox, who was the Western Conference Player of the Week. So that was a tough matchup in and of itself. Then you have to play Damian Lillard and Gary Trent Jr., who is playing at a ridiculously high level right now. And you've got, 2010 or whatever, Carmelo Anthony you had to go up against as well. Then you have to play Phoenix, who has Devin Booker and Chris Paul, who is also red hot. They've won 6 in a row. At both those teams, Portland and Phoenix, if they were in the East, they would be the 2 and the 3 seed right now. And then now tonight you got to play Utah, who is the best team in the NBA right now, red hot. And for anyone who doesn't realize how good Utah is, Utah has basically everybody on their roster that isn't a center can shoot. They have Donovan Mitchell, they have Jordan Clarkson, they have Mike Conley, who's playing great. They have Joe Ingles, who's playing out of his mind. Bogdanovich, who's playing great. Royce O'Neal. I mean, they are so deep and so good right now that, if the Sixers go up one, like you said, bro, do you want them to go 1-3? Of course not. You want them to, at least go 2-2. If they go 2-2, to me, that's actually impressive because of how daunting this road trip is and how good all the teams are and how good basketball all those teams are playing. If you go 1-3, though, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not the desired outcome, but it's not the end of the world. It's a very difficult road trip against good basketball teams. So if they win tonight in Utah and they go 2-2 on a trip, that would be, to me, an incredibly impressive West Coast swing.
With all that being said, do you also feel like there's something to be taken that can be learned from this West Coast swing, aside from the fact they need some more bench depth? Like, there's something about maybe like the way they're playing, their style of playing, maybe how they're using certain lineups together? Is there something specific outside from the out of bounds play that they can learn from this trip?
Well, I think you're seeing Ben Simmons, how he can be featured offensively, and he's starting to figure some things out. Uh, I'm seeing like the post ups are nice, but I'm also seeing some plays where he's turning and facing the basket, almost like Joel Embiid has kind of figured out that if if you get in that triple threat position and you face the basket, it puts defenders in a bind. And I think you're seeing as good as Tobias Harris has been, and I think he's played at if not close to an all-star level. When the offense runs through Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, that is your best bet. When everything's running through those guys, and they're playing their best basketball, they're really tough to stop. And like I said, on this trip in general, the starters have been winning their matchups. The starters have outplayed the opponent's starters, to me, in all 3 games. So that to me, like I saw someone like came at me on Twitter saying like, oh, they really need to improve the starting lineup. I'm like, I don't know what team you have been watching, but this starting lineup has been outstanding. It is the bench that is the sore spot right now. So I think what you could take, if you're looking for a positive to take from, I think it's that this starting unit, I think, is as good as anybody's in the NBA. And the way Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are playing right now, I think they're both peaking right now. And that, to me, is the most encouraging thing. And on both ends of the floor, they're both playing excellent two-way basketball.
I feel Doc Rivers goes with the philosophy sometimes of saving Ben Simmons defensively. Like, for example, CP3 wasn't on the floor, but Danny Green was guarding Booker, and he was on Payne for a little bit. And that definitely allowed Booker to get into his bag a bit and get some points there. And I just wonder, do you like that philosophy? I understand it. And I see why you would think that. And then Ben, and you give guys different looks too, and that can totally change the way that opponents are operating. It's like, whoa, Ben, oh, Danny, those are two different style of players. But is that the best way to handle this?
I don't mind it because, and the other thing you got to remember too, bros, is like, especially guys like Booker or Dame Lillard, they use ball screens so much. So they want you to switch. Like, they want to find a mismatch and hunt it. So when Ben Simmons is playing off the ball, that makes it when he's playing off of a guy like Booker, and Danny Green is actually his man, that makes it easier for Ben Simmons to come over and rotate and help. So I think that's a part of it too. I think Doc likes the idea of Ben Simmons kind of wreaking havoc and not having to focus on maybe the other team's best player and doing that. So I think there's an argument to be made for both. I think there's an argument to be made for, maybe Ben Simmons should be covering the best team's best player throughout the game. And then also it makes sense sometimes to have him almost in, like, they call it like a roamer role, where he's just kind of, again, really helping out rotation wise, looking for steals, looking for deflections, looking to get his hands on the basketball. Now, I also think it's the regular season. I think if it's the playoffs, so like if let's just say, for instance, the Sixers play the Celtics in the playoffs, Ben Simmons is going to cover Jason Tatum, I would think, from the opening tip. I would think. I don't know that, but that's what I would believe. And I think too, a part of it is him saving fouls. And again, in the playoffs, it's not, you're not getting as many calls. They let you play a little bit more physical. So maybe Ben Simmons can play more and have a little bit more wiggle room to not maybe get in that foul trouble. And then I also think it's an energy thing. As I mentioned, Ben Simmons is playing great offensively as well. So if you're asking him to guard Devin Booker for 40 minutes, that's a lot of energy exerted on one end of the floor. And maybe he doesn't have that energy on the offensive end of the floor to push the tempo or come up with a big play. So it's a give and take in a lot of ways. And I don't necessarily think there is a 100% right answer. But as we get closer to bigger games, and especially in playoff games, I imagine Ben Simmons will take on the toughest defensive assignment when the bigger games start to come.
Well, they certainly got a tough one tonight. The Jazz tonight, hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN at 9 p.m. Arguably the best team in the NBA right now is the Utah Jazz. Devin Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. I mean, the whole team. Clarkson looks like a sixth man of the year coming off the bench. It's ridiculous. So what are some of the challenges, aside from the obvious, for the Sixers tonight in Utah?
So it's just that Utah, I mean, like I said, they have got like multiple guys who can not only put the ball on the floor, but then they're all shooting like, I'm not even kidding. They have like 6 guys shooting over 40% from 3. That is insanity. And then you look, Mitchell, Connolly, Ingles, Clarkson, all of them can take you off the dribble. Like, the Sixers would kill for like one other guy that could take people off the dribble. The Jazz have like 4 of them. So I think that's what your issue is that you, kind of to Broad's question, like, sure, you could put Ben Simmons on Donovan Mitchell, but then Danny Green's got to cover Mike Conley. And then when the bench comes on, someone's got to cover Jordan Clarkson. Someone's got to handle Joe Ingles in the pick and roll because he's one of the more dangerous pick and roll players. He's so good at finding guys kind of on those short rolls. So, I mean, and then you have really good screeners in Gobert and then Favors off the bench. So they just have a lot of different ways to beat you. A team that can take you off the dribble, but then also shoot elite from the outside. It's just, it is a pick your poison situation. And it's going to be as good as the Sixers have been defensively at times. It is going to be a serious challenge for them tonight.
He is Paul Hudrick, our Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Joins the Sports Bash every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for Inside the Sixers segment here on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Of course, you can check out his podcast, Coming In for a Landing. As all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Out Hotline and live on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter streams, wearing, as you can see there on the stream, a Jurassic Park shirt. Now that's an old school shirt. That's not Jurassic World. That's Jurassic Park. Know the difference, people. Yeah, I know some people get them mixed up. You know what I mean, Paul? I mean, people. Yeah. I mean,
that's
bros.
shameful.
Bros, if you watched any Jurassic movies,
no.
See what I'm dealing with here, Paul?
No. And I know you're big Batman. Like, yeah, you guys can have all those conversations. I'll sit in the back and think about how Ben Simmons needs to shoot.
Well, we're diversifying our portfolio, okay?
You got to have an outlet, right? You got to.
I do. I watch the Kardashians. That's my outlet. Reality TV.
I think on that note, Josh, I gotta.
I love terrible reality television. That's my outlet. You guys have fun with dinosaurs and stomping on people. I'll watch Kardashians.
Yeah. It's each their own.
Catch you later, Paul.
All right, guys.